I've never identified as a book reader in my life. The only books that I can remember reading were Harry Potter books, and I maybe think, and Diary of the Wimpy Kid books, those books were good. I think I maybe read Lord of the Rings, like the first, second book. I told myself I was going to finish it, but I never finished it. But anyway, yeah, the only thing I ever read outside of this, like Harry Potter and stuff like that, was probably manga, like One Piece. I recently just read Chainsaw Man, that's very, very good. But yeah, apart from that, I haven't really read that much in terms of like actual physical books, and I really want to change that. So this is the second episode of Book Club. This is a series where I read and review books as I promised to myself to make sure to start reading more. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about Viktor E. Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. So context, this is actually the first book that I decided to read after I initially told myself I want to start reading again. And let's just say it was quite an interesting book as the first book to get back into reading. So Viktor E. Frankl, he was a Holocaust survivor, and he focused a lot on psychology, and as a result of him being persecuted by like the Nazis and all that stuff, he invented a new form of psychology called logotherapy. And in this book, he details about how he managed to find that new form of psychology, and he talks about the experiences that he had within the concentration camps. Overall, this is a very, very heavy book, but again, it was actually quite enjoyable for me because it's very, very, very well written, and this is a tribute to the idea that you can really find hope from anywhere, even in something so bad as the Holocaust and the concentration camps that he was in. And it really has opened my eyes to the horrors that were taking place in World War II. I remember learning in history, but like really just reading it in the book, these personal experiences. I could tell you the facts right now. I could search up Google what were the facts of like how many people were murdered, injured, killed, whatever. But it really is the experiences that he details in the stories that he talks about in this book that really just gets you. Yeah, it was very interesting. The main way that I managed to read this book is through Audible for me, because I haven't read that much in my life, I'm a very, very slow reader and a very, very bad reader. Often when I'm reading something, if I'm not listening to anything behind, like in the background, like I would literally have to read like the same paragraph 5 times, and each time I read it so slowly in order to understand everything. But I don't know why. If I'm reading it and hearing at the same time, I think it's because like I'm doubling the amount of senses that are at work. Well, not doubling time by 1.5 because I'm also seeing it as well. But anyway, if I'm including more senses into my reading, if I'm putting more focused effort into my reading, it really helps me to, like, that same paragraph, I could listen to it because I put it on like 1.5, 1.6 times speed anyways. I'm that type of guy to just like watch each video at like 2-3 times speed because it's like so slow. Which to be fair is hypercritical because this video is probably going to be played back at one time speed, and I should really speed up on it. Anyway, but yeah, using Audible has really helped me out. So I'm not sponsored by Audible yet, but if you really do want a good way to read, there's a lot of people saying, oh, it's not the pure way to read. I'm like, what gets you to read is what you should do in order to read. That's my opinion. It's like, it's not the best way for you to read. I mean, like, if I were to read it like the pure way, just sitting in the room reading it like this on a summer hot day, like, it would be so boring. Being able to listen to it, and especially if you have a good book, the guy that narrated it was a very, very good narrator, so it made the book reading experience much more enjoyable. So I'd recommend for you to get Audible. This is not a sponsorship, this is just me telling you straight up, just get Audible because it will help you to read. So this book is mainly split into 2 parts. The first part covers his details out and his accounts of him going through the concentration camps and him surviving to see the end of the World War II. I thought it was going to be a very, very like dry book. It's sort of like more academia sort of book, which the second part is. That's what the second part is, a dry academia book, which is why I didn't read that, but I did read the first part, which is about his accounts and experiences and stories, and that was really, really good. I think it's around about 104 pages, all intents and purposes, and I managed to read that over the course of 2 days. The first page, I read 70 pages. So what happened is, I started reading. I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to finish this because I like to read stuff quickly. I don't want to wait like a month for me to finish a book because like I'm not gonna have the same like passion and desire and interest to read. Like I know you have to have discipline doing stuff and stuff like that, but like I just want to read for the sake of reading. So it's like this book I don't want to spend like months to read. So that's why I was like, I can't do this. I got the Audible subscription. It's like first 3 months, especially if you're a student, you can get it for free. And it made it so much more easier. In the first day, I managed to read 70 pages. And in the second day, I managed to read 34 pages. So totaling 104 pages for all intents and purposes. I stopped after that because then it was the more of the like academia side is like talking about how logotherapy can help you, or you can do and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I might read that later. I'm not going to read it. I'm probably not going to read it though. People say once you start a book, you have to finish it. I'm like, no. Like, why do I have to finish a book once I've started it? Like, completely. It doesn't make sense. You can stop it whenever you want. I think that's one of the main reasons why I was able to finish the book. Is like that thing, oh, if I don't like it, I can just stop it whenever I want. There's nothing forcing me to finish what I've started. Not a bad time, considering this is the first book I read. This book is what? November now, start of November. I started reading this book around 3 months ago, was that? November, October, September, so August time, I think. Around about that time. Let me just give you my initial thoughts right now, for those of you who can't wait. As I said before, it was a very, very good book. Especially it was worth the read. If you haven't got this book, this is coming from somebody who hasn't read books at all. But this is the first book that I read after a long time and actually managed to keep me hooked and keep me wanting to read more. So if that says anything, then yeah, get this book. The themes that were mentioned within the book were very interesting. Like, this book really makes you think, like, how can you derive hope from a hopeless situation? That's essentially what like a majority of the stories within this book is about. Like, how can you derive hope when there's nothing to be hopeful about? I definitely think I will read this book again after a couple of years' time, because this is one of the books where you will get something different out of every single reread, and it will impact you no matter how old you are. I think if you're 15 and above, then you'll understand the themes that this book is conveying. And I think the more older you are, not the more older you are, but like, you will not read it once and understand everything that the book has to offer straight away. You will have to read it again multiple times throughout the years, and every single time you will get something different. That's the sort of vibe that I feel like is emanating from this book. So yeah, I do plan to reread this once I've got, these are all books I just found. So once I finish all of that, maybe in a couple of years' time, I'll give this another go, see if I resonate with what I did read when I first read it. In terms of the actual question, what's the meaning of life, which is the point of this whole entire book, Man's Search for Meaning. That's the reason why it's called Man's Search for Meaning, if you didn't know already. This is about him going through these things. He thinks about and ponders about what really made him keep going after everything that he experienced, and from that he figured out what he believes the meaning of life to be, which is a very powerful lesson to everybody that can be applied to everything. In terms of that, in my opinion, the book says that the meaning of life is the sort of thing that can be objectified, instead of it just being a very subjective thing, because the meaning of life seems very like woo-ha, sort of mystical. But he's saying that it can be objectified. You can not physically, but like mentally, tangibly think about the meaning of life in an objective way, rather than from a subjective point of view, which I find very interesting. Whilst also saying that the meaning of life is concrete. So he talks about the meaning of life being concrete and objective. Concreteness, the idea that you're trying to portray, can be clearly defined. It's, as I said before, it's not some sort of like woo-ha sort of thing. It can be clearly defined. Whereas objectivity holds to the idea that you're trying to portray is a universal truth. It can be applied to everybody. It's not different for each individual. Every single person has the meaning of life that fits that criteria that Viktor E. Frankl is trying to suggest as to what the meaning of life could be. One quote, which to be honest I don't think is from this book, but Viktor E. Frankl does say it, the author of this book does say this quote. I think this quote summarizes the whole entire book. It can never accentuate all the words that are being said over here, but it's a very, very good highlight or overview about what the book is about. He says, ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of life is, but rather recognize that it is he who asked. In a word, each man is questioned by his own life, and he can only answer to it by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. Damn, that's a heavy, heavy quote. Just wow. Viktor E. Frankl believes that the meaning of life is being able to tackle anything that life throws at you with dignity, as mentioned countless times in the book. To be able to uphold your human values and keep moving forward. Tatake, as Eren Yeager says in Attack on Titan. But yeah, that's a general overview of this book. Would I recommend it? Absolutely. To people 15 and above. This is a very good book for me to read. Although it's very thematically heavy, I do feel like I do like the challenge on reading these type of books, and this book was very interesting to me. I like media that you don't just watch for like sort of like junk food. I like media that you really take home. The story's good, but at the same time you learn from the story. You learn from the character's actions, character's mistakes. What the character has learned, you learn from that. And I've definitely learned a lot from this book that will be taking me forward. So yeah, that is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. I hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you like, subscribe, and do the rest of the usual stuff, blah blah blah. Until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.